Veranoia, Nightmare of Case 37. I went into this game with no expectations at all, but with a positive feeling. I mean, not like I ever heard of it, probably just like you right now, but the developer gave it away on Reddit and it didn't sound too bad, so yeah. Unfortunately, I still got disappointed and finished the game with a fairly negative feeling. The idea is that we play as Vera Herdman, a detective who is able to dive into the nightmares of recently deceased to find out how and why they died. Of course, this isn't without trouble because our newest case, Case 37, is possessed by the evil, the Eye Syndicate. Yeah, they are called that because they just spawn eyes everywhere. Anyway, we want to free her and avoid becoming possessed ourselves, because that can actually happen and means game over. Literally. Arriving at this hospital, which is totally not completely weird, we make our way to our case, 37. Zoe, who just recently died. Once we dive into her, we are greeted with the info that we were tricked into coming here. Great. Anyway, making our way through the game, we find several notes explaining what happened, lots of lore and how to free Zoe, ourselves and several other people, while being at constant danger of getting possessed by the Eye Syndicate. And to be honest, I think this concept doesn't sound too bad and could have made for a very interesting story and game. So why did I dislike it after all? Well, the answer is polish. Wait, no, polishing, and especially the lack of it. I am not someone who is too distracted by some bugs, performance issues, bad game design choices, bad graphics, bad voice acting, a lackluster story and such if the rest of the game is still fun and shows promise. Especially when the game is developed by only one person like this one. Unfortunately, most of the game was full of these problems and I can barely remember anything I really liked. Everything is either mediocre, outright bad, or gets ruined 2 seconds later by something bad. The game starts out alright, the area looks decent, the atmosphere is good, I was actually reminded of Signalis, but then you step into the elevator and the shit just pops out of nowhere and it's not even remotely scary. You can actually see, or not see, how I didn't move my mouse in the slightest. Literally, a minute later, the game tries this again, but in even worse. You open the door and bro is just chilling there. I actually liked the overall feel of the hospital, but these two jokes of a jumpscare just completely destroyed the atmosphere and should be removed entirely in my opinion. And similar stuff just happens over and over and over again. There's a decently spooky environment, but then boom, weird out of place laser gate. Boom, horrible looking NPC. Boom, bad jump scare. Boom, even worse chase enemy. Boom, whatever the hell these are. Boom, another bad chase enemy. And boom, even more horrible looking NPCs. There's some interesting areas, puzzles and pieces of story in between these moments, but the game is dragged down so much by all this bullshit that the, at least remotely good, doesn't matter anymore. I would have actually preferred it if the game just didn't feature any of these and would be more alike to, for example, Silent Hill Alchemilla, another running simulator, but one that manages to successfully build a creepy atmosphere with just music, environments and puzzles, without the need of horrible chase sections and jump scares. And if these really needed to be in the game, despite all that, which would make sense considering they fill out a large part of the playtime, then they need to be improved at the very least. Put a heavier emphasis on the jump scares. Half of the time I didn't even notice them until I saw a random person standing there. Make the player look in the direction naturally, because I wasn't sometimes until I was forced like that, which was just annoying. Make sure you have a creepy sound for the jump scares and not whatever the hell this is supposed to be. For example, in this moment in the movie All Hallows Eve, there's a fairly simple and usually not frightening scare, but I actually felt very uneasy when watching it thanks to the great sound effect. The scares in the game are just the total opposite. Additionally, improve the running animation and speed of the enemies and the player. It's laughable having to run away from a monster that is barely faster than a newborn baby and looks like this. Overall, the poor attempts at trying to be scary make the game less scary and more annoying after all, which is a shame because it really distracts from the otherwise decent atmosphere. And do you know what's a shame as well? That most of you haven't subscribed yet, even though you watch the videos, so please consider doing so if you're enjoying this and want to support me. Thank you. Apart from that, there are also some smaller problems regarding the presentation that I didn't mention yet. They aren't too bad considering it was a one developer job, but they add up and hurt the experience. The visuals are extremely inconsistent and there's basically no art style. Every area looks completely different from the previous one with a massively varying amount of detail. Sometimes everything looks fine until the next room that is completely horrendous again. The texture quality is all over the place as well. Some textures look fine and what you would expect from a game that aims to look realistic, while others look literally worse than a GameCube game. This seems to become a bigger issue towards the end of the game where I notice it a lot. Additionally, there are very annoying invisible walls at plenty of places that really shouldn't be there. For example, at this instant I'm not allowed to go down there even though nothing is in the way because of the scripted sequence. It would have been better to just take the control from the player instead, especially because there are moments where the game does that anyway. So it's not like in Dead Space that handles the player full control until the very end. Unfortunately, the performance on my PC wasn't great either, especially considering the visuals, but as far as I'm aware this is still being improved and it wasn't too bad, so that's good to see at least. The voice acting is also interesting because there is none. Apart from a single unknown voice, which actually sounds decent.
I've been watching you closely, but this time it's your nightmare. You see, I'm the one who pulls the strings here.
I understand that there are most likely no resources to voice every character, but this just adds up on the pile of inconsistent choices. I think it would have been better to voice either every character or not a single one, so that the player at least knows what to expect. But although the unknown voice is the only voice acted person, there's also a breathing sound for the player. It occurs after sprinting for too long, or rather walking slightly faster than slow, and sounds very robotic and is very distracting. Apart from that, I also wasn't a fan of how the dialogue was presented. There's just a mess of text at the bottom of the screen every now and then, while the game continues like nothing happens. Most other non-voice acted games just pause the game until you continue yourself, which is a way better approach. Unfortunately, this was overall very negative, but captures my honest thoughts about the game. It's far from being the worst I have ever played, and I see some potential in here, especially in the idea of being a detective and diving into the nightmares of the dead, but the execution was pretty bad after all. There are just too many bad aspects and not enough good in the game to remain fun for me. But still, please check out the Steam page of the game and consider buying it if it looked interesting to you. After all, it only cost €1, even less on sale, and will most likely improve with more updates. I also want to thank the developer again for gifting this game to so many people, which is an incredible nice gesture and I really appreciated it. I definitely won't forget this game and I'm looking forward to trying it again in the future after some updates. So what do you think about this game? Have you played it? Did you like it? Do you consider playing it? Please tell me in the comments. Apart from that, please subscribe, like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you and see you next time.